Well, Austin-based Kristine Palmer co-founded Horse and Bow, where she combines horses, archery, and mindfulness for team building and leadership development. Therapeutic activities with horses, they can include riding, grooming, and caring for horses, which helps individuals develop skills like communication, trust, confidence, and emotional regulation. So stay tuned for a fascinating conversation.
This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media with resources and ideas for you at mid-career or halftime of life. Check out our online courses where we want you to not only start, but finish. Books available in all versions and songs available for immediate download with sheet music and instrumental accompaniment tracks. Our musicals are family-friendly with great music that's memorable and inspiring. Sign up at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter for weekly updates. Now to our episode.
Well, I'd like to welcome Kristine this morning. I'm so excited for this conversation because I love horses. Actually, I always wanted a horse growing up. But my dad was very smart in saying, we'll go horseback riding. But, caring for a horse, that's a whole different thing. But you are into the horse equine therapy, as well as, using this now for professional development. I am very excited to hear. I like my guests to share their background and how in the world did you get into this area? So, Kristine, why don't you tell a little bit about your background and why you focused on this area?
Okay. Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm excited to be here today. I have a varied background. I've done a lot of different things. I actually started my career in finance at Merrill Lynch, and I got my MBA while I was home with kids. And then I went into consulting and do some marketing work. And it was actually in 2021 that I got into horses, really, which is not that long ago. It's pretty recent. My daughter started taking horseback riding lessons when she was young, and I was very similar to what your dad did. And I was like, we'll put you in lessons, but we are not buying a horse. We are not owning horses. It sounds very expensive and
yes,
big commitment, really big commitment. And so she just took lessons for many years. And then it was actually, I guess, in 2020 that she experienced equine therapy for the first time because she has an autoimmune condition and we couldn't ride during that time when things got shut down. She couldn't take her lessons. And so I thought, well, this girl just needs to be around horses, though. She was at a point in her autoimmune journey. She has an autoimmune condition and she needed to be around horses. That's just what I felt. And so I found her a therapy place and it just about knocked me off my chair when I saw her for the first time doing this therapy. And I thought, oh my goodness, she is invested in this relationship with the horse. It's not about the skills she's been learning and riding, although she enjoyed it. And she had excelled up to hunter jumper level where she was jumping horses, but had no interest in competing, no interest in going to shows and things. I was so puzzled by that because I'm a very competitive person. I want to win. And if I'm practicing something, I should, see if I'm better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? And so when she did that, though, and I saw, oh my goodness, it's really just about the relationship with the horse for her. It's like, what is it about these animals? And I had a little bit of exposure to horses at summer camp and things when I was young, but not like she had. And as a mom, I just sat there on the sides watching. I really didn't interact with horses at all. So after that, I told my husband, I said, we have to move. We have to live somewhere that she can have a horse in her yard. And we did it. The next year, we just made it happen. And so the next year we moved out of Austin, not in downtown, but we were pretty close, central Austin, and moved out to Marble Falls, where we bought 30 acres and 2 horses. And my daughter's trainer was like, why are you doing this? You shouldn't. I don't encourage first-time homeowners to have the horse on their property. You should have it in a barn cared for by professionals. So I was like, nope, the whole reason for this is so that she can see a horse and be with a horse every day. And that's when we caught the bug, all the rest of us. We all of a sudden understood the impact that being around these animals can have on our everyday lives. And we started learning really powerful things. And it didn't take long before I thought, we have to share this with more people that have had various struggles in their lives, more people that just want to know what this is about, that can't, own a horse or even participate in regular lessons. And that's when I found equine-assisted learning, which I'll just note is a little different than equine therapy. So Equine therapy is with a licensed therapist and often an equine specialist. So you often will have two professionals with you. And the goals of equine therapy are more focused on issues of depression, anxiety, you have PTSD, maybe addictions that somebody's working through. A lot of people, like veterans, get a lot of benefit from equine therapy.
Right.
And the challenge for me there was, because of her condition, she didn't qualify for a lot of the nonprofits that ran equine therapy programs. And so it was actually quite hard for me to get her into a place even during that time. So when I decided we should be sharing this kind of experience with people, I wanted it to be equine assisted learning, where people did not feel the need for it to be therapy. They don't have to dig into the trauma of their past. They don't have to be coming for some incredible healing. They can just come to learn something new. So equine assisted learning and the professional development work that I do is more done with an equine assisted learning facilitator. So somebody's that's been certified in how to facilitate these kind of experiences. And what people tend to be looking for is growth in skills like self-awareness or leadership or mindfulness. Maybe they need to grow a little empathy, get some help with teamwork, building teamwork skills or problem-solving skills. So that's where I see our offering is just a little bit different, or what I try to offer, because I don't want someone to feel like they have to fit a certain, diagnosis box to be able to come. Really, anybody who has an interest in improving themselves or their leadership skills and wants to explore this modality of doing it with horses would fit the bill for equine assisted learning. Anyway, so that's how we got here. We just started offering it a couple of years ago on our property. We've now grown to 5 horses, which is what happens when you own one. Then you must have 2, and then it becomes 3 and 4 and 5. And we have 2 donkeys, and they all participate and are incredible teachers in our program.
Ah, how wonderful. How wonderful. And it's a lot of work to care for horses. I just brought our granddaughters to a local stable where I have a friend that has, she's owned horses. And of course, my granddaughters, they love horses, especially one. Oh my goodness. And she knew every brand, every type, all of the, all of the horses. Oh my goodness. So she's naming them all. And but there's a lot of care that goes into that. So, and thank you for explaining that difference, because I have visited a facility for the horse equine therapy, and with autistic kids and with all of the, it's amazing. And so thank you for sharing a little, because I knew you focused on leadership and professional development, but I didn't know the term, how that was different. And it's very, very valuable. I still love horses. I have way too much in my life to care for horses. Yes. I need to go and visit. I just rode Icelandic horses, actually. Oh, it was so much fun.
Yeah. Did you go to Iceland? And
we went to Iceland and rode those horses. I told my husband, I don't want to just ride them once. I want to ride them a couple times. So we did. And it was because they have a little bit different gait and everything. It was really interesting. It was very interesting. And they're just such sweet animals, but they do take a lot of hair and they have a lot of poop. Yes.
It's a lot of work. A lot of work. Ever since we moved out here, my kids have been saying, was this like some secret plan to have children so that you could move out and have farm workers?
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, children, if you only knew the amount of work we do while you're not.
Exactly. While you're sleeping or out in your whatever.
But they do participate a lot. I have 2 kids. They're 15 and 13, and they participate a lot in the care of the horses. And it wouldn't be possible without them. It is a lot of work to keep them all healthy and in good spirits and healthy mental state for them as well, because they do interact with people who, while I say we don't do equine therapy, everybody who comes out here finds healing of some sort, right? There's some sort of therapeutic value where they find just an incredible gift. And it's not nothing for the horses to participate with humans that aren't, used to that. So we do really do a lot of work to make sure they're, living their best horse life so that they can interact with humans in the best way possible.
I really do think they're connected to any sort of animal. Dogs. It's just a caring for an animal who's dependent. It's almost like a child, but, and they're always giving love, and so that's, I think that's really beautiful. So I'm sure you have some stories. Is there just a standout story that you can share briefly of one of the person, because that is so impactful for us to hear how someone has grown through this, or their life has changed, or they're figuring out themselves.
Yeah. I think that honestly, the most impactful one is my husband's story.
Wow.
So he is an attorney and he is a partner at his firm. And I think he understood. I was so excited about this when I got, certified in being an equine assisted learning facilitator. But it wasn't until he was in the round pen with one of our horses. And I just asked, I wanted him to experience it and see what I had gone through after all of my training. And he walked in and this horse literally went crazy. He just looked at the horse and basically the exercise is that you kind of look at the hind end of the horse and ask for some movement just with your mind. And that horse took off running and bucking and carrying on and just jumping all around. And I was like, all right, Nathan, you need to breathe, bring it down, slow down, just settle. And the horse just kept going. He's like, I am settled. I'm breathing. I don't have a problem with breathing. And after he came out for a minute, I went in with the horse and I tried to get the horse to move, and the horse barely moved. Like barely.
Wow.
And so we saw together in that experience as a couple how his energy has an extreme impact on people. He just has that, and the horses read that. And with me, it's just a different, completely different interaction with the exact same horse in the exact same environment. Obviously some things change, the wind or a smell maybe, but he was like, whoa, I've been told that I'm intimidating. And,
wow.
In my office, the younger people are a little concerned to come talk to me, for instance. And he said, but I did not know what that meant until I saw the horse respond so differently to two different people. And so that's that's kind of the biggest standout story for me, because it made such a difference in how he then started interacting. So he then brought his law firm out, a couple of his associates, and did some of these team building activities. And they had very similar outcomes, not the same story, because we didn't do those same individual exercises, but they started realizing things about themselves and about others that they had assumed other things. Brene Brown talks about like the stories we tell ourselves, right?
Exactly.
So they started to understand the stories they were kind of making up about both themselves, how they're being perceived by others, and how they're perceiving others. Wow. And they started to recognize things within the team, like some really strong young leaders that stood out after that exercise, some incredibly open and honest dialogue between some more senior members and more junior members about life as an attorney, how you find that balance, how you strike that life work balance, but also just even within the firm, you're pulled with a lot of different priorities in different directions. And they didn't understand how to manage their time or how to manage their energy or how to communicate well with the people that are assigning things to them. And so that open and honest dialogue connected them so deeply and gave them that honest ability to step out of the office context and say, hey, this is where I'm struggling. And this is something I haven't quite figured out. And the more senior people were really able to offer some really good advice and speak some joy and inspiration into, how they can handle themselves going forward. So those are the kind of things that first stand out. It's every single one. I never know what's going to happen when a group comes out. And almost every time I laugh because my husband and my sister help me do these workshops. And at the end, we look at each other like, it worked again. we have a plan, but it never goes according to plan. And yet at the end, there's always an incredible learning for people that and if nothing else, they just feel great. They have fun, feel more at peace. This experience with horses just brings another layer of the relationship with their coworkers. So it's all amazing.
That's so exciting. It's just fulfilling, and how great that you can see. Sometimes we don't always see the results of our impact on people because they'll go off and we don't really see the actual, huge growth. But this was so personal to you. Now you can see that's a great, great story. How has this helped you personally learn? Because, the horses also do so many things in dealing with depression, anxiety, and all of that. So what has been, as you've developed your business, what sort of growth, besides, becoming a facilitator and all of that, what else have you experienced through this journey?
Well, this might sound a little bit cheesy, but it's all about mindset. And I know it's a total buzzword right now, but I never understood until doing this work how impactful our mindset was. And I had heard about limiting beliefs. I didn't feel like I had any. I knew you should shift to a positive, outlook or mentality. I didn't understand how negative I was. I know the difference between a victim mindset and, someone who's engaged in tackling challenges, but I did not see the language that I used to myself as being victim-based sometimes. And so through numerous experiences and then the continued trainings that I've done, the common theme, there's a few, but one of the main ones is shifting to a positive mindset and understanding that things are happening for you and not to you, and that there's learning that is available in every circumstance and interaction you have. It started in my very first training when one of the co-facilitators made some comment to me to the effect of, why do you always say such negative things about yourself? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm a confident person. I don't feel negative about myself. And then I started catching it for the next couple of days. I'd hear something. And really what I think I was doing in those moments was trying to not sound cocky or overly confident. I was just trying to say, well, I'm not really that empathetic. And that's a negative thing to say about myself because I am. But what I was trying to say was I don't see it the same way as everybody else. It wasn't my first impression. And so I've really learned that there's some different language that I could even use with myself. And then I start to recognize it, of course, in other people. And rather than correct them, I recognize, okay, they're coming from a place where they're feeling targeted or attacked, or they're on the defensive when they say something like this, or they're feeling insecure when they say something like this. And so I can then take a different approach in the way that I interact with them because I know they're going to need more support, or they're going to need my positive encouragement, or that maybe a question that helps them shift to what can I do with this, or what can I try next because this thing didn't work or because I'm struggling. So for me, it's been that positive mindset shift that, again, I'd heard a million times, but that's the joy and the magic and the power of experiential learning is when you experience it, you see it, you hear it, you feel it, you smell it, this whole interaction with horses. Those stories and those learnings are so sticky. They're stuck in your brain and they pop up every time you encounter a similar situation, maybe in a new context. Those learnings, like positive mindset, I'm like, oh, right. I got to shift out of this victim mindset and figure out how can I make this game work for me. So I think that I don't know why I'm discounting it now. I'm using negative language. It's not that big of a thing, but it is. And in my life, it's a really big thing to recognize that it just takes a moment to shift into something more positive that can help you overcome a challenge rather than get stuck in the wallowing of the suffering or the challenge you're in.
I think that's a wonderful thing to share. And it's so easy to revert back to that with the mindset and our self-talk and not really looking at the mirror, just we're looking at everybody else, but we're not really looking at our own life and our, everything, especially if you're a trainer and if you're a coach and, you're seeing everybody else and you do everything else. But okay, so you got to do a little of that journaling and your own, working through it. And what I find, of course, is that it's the same thing with teaching for years and years. And, as you teach something, the teacher learns more almost because all of a sudden you're going, oh, I need to, apply exactly what I'm telling people to do, to do. So it's very, very revealing. And I think and thank you for sharing that with mindset. It's a buzzword,
right?
But it's so powerful. It's really powerful. And it applies to every single area of our life, in our relationships, in our businesses, everything, professional relationships, personal relationships, self-talk, every area, it really does apply. So, and you've touched on the horses, how they can pickup anxiety, because you talked about your husband, and that I thought that was great. So what else have you seen a horse being able, because if they can pick up that anxiety, they can probably pick up other sort of emotions. What have you learned about the horses through this state? You're working with them.
Well, that's such an interesting question. And the anxiety piece is fascinating. And I think it's actually very layered. There's a lot more to it, where what I think they're picking up on more than anything is the incongruence that is happening with someone. So some people will ask me, is the horse going to be able to tell that I'm anxious? Or I've heard this, that the horse is going to be able to tell that I'm nervous. So what do I do to not be nervous in front of them? And I say, don't hide that. That's really the point. They pick up on the anxiety, and that the emotion that's coming out, or the energy, that buzzing energy that's happening underneath the surface, but more they're picking up on the fact that this person is trying to walk in all confident and like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm very comfortable, but they can sense that heart rate or that energy underneath is elevated and a little activated. And so it's the incongruence that confuses them then, because they can see they are truth tellers. They can see what's happening. And I think for most people, I just say, really, let's just talk about that. Let's just say those words out loud. I am nervous. And we can work through that, and we can do some breathing techniques for different things to actually try to calm ourselves. But the horses just they see you at face value. So what they don't like is seeing someone who's hiding who they are.
Okay. Wow.
So they've got a superpower of their sensory system, and they pick up on so many details about what's going on inside of us, what's going on between us, what's going on with the other things in the environment. And they're making sense of the whole picture and responding accordingly. So I think really just admitting someone being nervous is the biggest step that can be taken to experiencing a true, authentic interaction with the horses.
Oh, how great that they have that. And why do you think they're so gifted? I mean, the horses, is there something just about the way they're made up? You said it's the superpower for horses.
Yeah. I think it's just the way they were created. They have, really good auditory sensation. They've got good tactile sensation. They smell really well. They can see well, but they just have all of their senses are so in tune. And I think that's all of nature, right? I mean, when we get out in nature, there's something that draws us to, the desert or the beach, right? With the ocean, and into spaces with animals. Like you said, all kinds of animals, when they're so grounded in who they were created to be and what they are on this earth. I think they just stay so attuned. And really that comes down for horses. It's that predator and prey mentality. As a prey animal, they have to be super aware of their environment to stay safe. And they rely on the rest of the herd to also be that way. Because as they're spread out grazing in a field, you'll see one horse, pop up its head as some sound or smell or something comes into their awareness. The other horses immediately also recognize that somebody noticed something, and they look to that horse. And when that horse goes to put its head back down to graze, that means, the fear is off. We don't have to worry anymore, but they are prepped to run at any moment. And so actually just the other night, one of our neighbors set off some fireworks, and all our horses started running around like one big boom, and horses start running. And I was working on some physical therapy for one of the horses, and that I was startled myself, had to let her go and let them just kind of settle. And it ended up 3 or 4 fireworks, and then it was over, and everybody went back to normal like nothing had ever happened. But their sensory systems are just so incredibly attuned to what's going on in the environment around them, and into the other beings that they're interacting with. And I just think it's how they're made.
Yeah, isn't that great? I noticed this with little animals or like dogs, like our dog. I mean, I won't hear a thing, but man, she's a hunter. She's a little tiny thing too, but she's she'll leap up in those, and last night she leapt up quickly into the planters, and there ran off 2 rats. I mean,
my.
I know. We have fruit here, so it's like, and it's that season. Oh my gosh, I got to put out tons of traps. Anyway, That's wonderful that you recognize that, and you gave them space then
Right.
with the firecrackers. I mean, any animal would, be shocked with that too. And I think those the benefits, you've really shared a lot of that too, with the benefits of working with horses. Now, who should consider, because really I was so interested in this interview too, because of the professional development, because I've really seen just such a sweet impact with kids and with adults too, that have mental challenges, physical challenges. They get them on a horse. It's really amazing what happens, the connection there. So who should consider this with professional development, personal development? I love the example of the attorneys. I just think that's great, because we all think of attorneys just this hard nose. I have a son who's an attorney, so I can tell. We knew that at 2 years old, we knew that's where he was destined. So he just had to figure it out for himself. But there's a certain little personality, cut and dry, many times. And so who should consider something like this?
I really think teams that need to work together towards big goals and need to be working like a well-oiled machine. They need to collaborate effectively. They need to communicate well. They need to actually be really in tune with each other. Attunement is a big piece of what we experience with horses, getting lined up with what they're focused on and what's impacting them. So I think really remote teams should definitely be considering this, because they're not together in the office. But even teams that are in the office together, you need to step out of that office context, out of those typical roles of leader, team member, junior, different levels of people, and experience a different interaction. When you do these, we call them challenges that we put forth to teams in this kind of context, you see a completely different side of someone and their capabilities. You become aware of their perspective. One of the biggest learnings people have, actually, it's a very simple exercise where we observe the horses in their herd state, and we start talking about hierarchy and different things that are going on in the dynamics between the horses. And people see such different things. They'll see a horse standing by itself, and one person sees a lonely, sad, forlorn horse that is being, singled out and left out of the team or the herd. And another person will see a strong and confident, strong-willed individual that doesn't need the team and is doing just fine on their own. And when you start hearing that's what your team member sees, it just changes everything about your interactions, because when you then have maybe a standoffish kind of interaction with them, you can see that as a defensive mechanism or a confidence mechanism, or, you can understand that they actually see things differently than you. So I think those teams that just maybe they feel like they go into battle together against competitors, or they are in, like, lawyers are an interesting one because they are in such a high stress environment, and it is so combative. And they have to represent their client and their team to the best of their ability, but they don't need to be combative with their team. And that's it just bleeds over to their families, to their teams, to people that they don't want to, argue with all the time. But the argument is so ingrained in them. Getting right, being right, or getting to the bottom of something and finding the right perspective is so important to them. So groups like that, I think, are where we can have a huge impact. And I love what you talked about with kids. And I think people naturally say that, I'll put my kid in this, or I'll invest in something like this for my child. But as parents, we need to model the kind of behavior we want our children to learn.
Wow.
So I think it's so much more powerful. And I do a lot of kid activities, but I think it is so much more powerful if the parents will engage, if the adults in the world, the leaders of the teams, if they will come, then the change starts with you. If you want to see impact and change on your team, you have to see in yourself or in your family. If you want your kids to behave a different way, you've got to come to some level of self-awareness of how you are behaving and how the impact you're having. So I think, people who maybe see a lot of problems around them should start by coming and doing this for themselves. and then bring their team. And that's how it worked with my husband in many groups. We've had, an individual come and then they'll bring their team back and say, I really wanted everyone to experience this because I want to be better understood. And I now see that I could better understand others and we could then interact better together if we understood each other better.
Oh, that's great. And there's so much work that needs to be done in leadership today, and leadership development, and there's so many speakers on leadership. I mean, it's like a dime a dozen. I just got back from a national speakers conference as we recording this, and everybody's got leadership.
Right.
Well, it is a need. But I think one of the best ways to teach, because I've taught since I was 13, I just started doing that in piano and taught adults when I was 13. And, I learned a lot as I went along. Plus, I didn't have to babysit or, pull weeds. So that was better for me. As far as I earned more money and went through school, everything else. But you learn so much by doing that. And, but I just know how important that is, with the learning concepts. And I'm forgetting a little bit of my whole point in mentioning that. But, it was with the leadership. Experience is the best teacher.
Right.
For years, I would have, we call them workshops. And I call them workshops because it's, as a classically trained concert pianist, I had workshops. I was just asked, were you on the drill team and everything? And I said, I couldn't. I had Friday night workshops with my, I had to have another piece memorized and perform it and all of this. But it taught me so much by having those goals. And I think the actual experience having to go through, and I've always said this with music, the performance, it refines more because you are experiencing it. You are putting yourself under that pressure. You are getting into the saddle when you're thinking, am I going to fall? Am I, all of those things, you're starting to connect and you're going, oh, this is this beautiful animal is just going to take me on a slow walk first. And then, trusting, that real. So there's that sort of experience that's so important in leadership, that's so applicable. And I love it that the leaders would come first and then they'd bring the team, because it all starts with the leader, and to make sure that they are doing what they need to do first, and not just say, here, do this, do this, do this. Yes. And so I just think it's a wonderful way, creative way to teach leadership skills, self-evaluation, work on mindset, work on responses. I love your example of attorneys. I think every attorney that would listen to this needs to go, oh, maybe I need that for my team. So, right. Which brings me to my next point. How do, first of all, how do people come to work with you? But if they are not going to really take a trip out and, where you are in the Austin area, I'm you're in that area still, but, how do they find something local like this? Or do you have any online resources that they can apply? What kind of offerings do you have, and how do people find it?
Well, the easiest way to work with us is to find us online, www.horseandbow.com. So on our website. I'm also on LinkedIn, and they can see more about what we offer there. I think one of the ways, I would like to help people find other places in the country to do this. We are in Marble Falls, just outside of Austin, but I have done trainings all over the country, and I have met facilitators all over the country through those continuing education trainings. So I have quite the personal network of people that I can refer to. So I'm very happy if people want to contact me through the website and say, hey, I need someone in California or someone on the East Coast. I'm very happy to see if I can facilitate, a connection to one of the right places. But if they're looking for it on their own, I think one of the really hot button things that we need to look at today is horse welfare. You're looking for somebody who's taking care of their herd really well, to the best of their ability. There's a lot of challenges, like you talked about at the very beginning, in managing horses, but there's a lot of best practices that should really be followed in programs like this. And I think just even with the news of the Olympics and everything, the recent things with the horse events there is just a lot of focus on that. And I think before I took care of horses on my own, I did not understand. So I'm not sure how the general public would assess that, if the horse is being well cared for, other than, general cleanliness. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of poop. So just
yes.
the ground is not clean, but the horse is not being well cared for, or the facility isn't clean.
Right,
but I think really, you want to look at the certifications of the facilitators, make sure that they have been trained, or they have some good experience, make sure that their horses are being well cared for. But again, as a general public who hasn't taken care of horses, it's kind of hard to make that assessment. So I'd be more than happy to be a resource to anyone who's looking into this and wants some help with that. And of course, we'd love to welcome anybody to come here that wants to. We have, we're in the beautiful Texas Hill Country, which has become quite the travel destination. So a lot of places, fun glamping places and nice resorts stay around us and come hang out with us and our horses during the day.
Oh, that'd be fun. I'd love to come. So my love for horses.
Yes.
This has been just a fascinating conversation, and thank you for giving your website, because people can do that. Say your website one more time, because I want you to say it. It will be in the show notes, by the way. And we have articles coming out every week, and usually I will include videos and all of that coming, for every single podcast, and announcements of those too. But just say your website and your the way they can contact you one more time for listeners.
It's horseandbow.com. And the bow is because we also offer archery as a mindfulness practice for team. We incorporate both horses and archery in our program. And then finding me on LinkedIn as Kristine Palmer is another easy way to.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you so very much. And for those interested in our articles or making sure that you don't miss any podcasts, I do still call it a newsletter, but it's just weekly articles, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. And that's what we do. I have other websites as well, and you can always find me plenty of places online as well. Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. And I hope people have just these takeaways of, they're not directly applying principles from this, but they're exploring another option for leadership, or for, I liked the focus also on the therapy and, what horses can bring that way. And not only for those with special needs. I have a daughter-in-law that works with special needs, and there's a special people that work with special needs. And I really appreciate that. So, but this is an area that, I think a lot of people can benefit from with those beautiful animals. And thank you for caring for them. They are, oh boy, a lot of work. Yes, I'm sure. You can get up early, and I'm sure the whole thing. So thank you again, Kristine. And thank you everyone for joining us. It's always a pleasure, always fun. And I will look forward to seeing everyone again next time. So bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.